Welcome to the Game Sense Football Podcast. I'm Ewan, and with me is Nas.
Hello.
Hey Nas, and in today's episode, we take a look at Mohamed Salah and his incredible achievements with Liverpool, and discuss and compare to some key players from other teams in the Premier League over the last 2 to 3 decades, and perhaps we shall come to some conclusions on where Mohamed Salah ranks on this list of greatness. So Nas, today's question to you,
Okay.
somewhat open-ended. Since we're talking about achievements, what's one achievement in life that you're particularly proud of? Difficult questions again.
Difficult question, yeah. I mean, it would sound like my life is meaningless if I don't have an answer, right? I think there isn't one particular big thing I can pin my head on. I am quite happy with a lot of smaller things I've done in life. I'll share one tiny thing that happened recently, which isn't a great achievement by any means, but I was particularly proud of. Where I stay, there are a lot of stray animals, mostly cats, and there's a group of volunteers that feed and take care of them every day. And I help out from time to time when I can. And there was this particular kitten that was very, very afraid of people. So very malnourished, and even with the volunteers were giving food, the kitten didn't really eat because it was just too afraid. So one day I was just stood there squatting in the hot sun and coaxed it to sort of trust me and eat food from my hand, and it started eating and got better. Went from this skinny skeletal thing to now healthy and all. I see it every day when I walk home. I can't adopt it to bring it home because the cat we have at home is insanely jealous and territorial. But yeah, so I see this kitten every day, and I'm like low key proud of myself that I've saved this kitten's life.
I think that's very commendable. You should be proud of it. Yeah. Well done, Nas. Well done.
I do know someone who claims to have saved one entire species of shark from extinction when he was on holiday in Mallorca, but I think this guy was just full of shit.
Sounds sounds like a bit of a stretch. An entire species. Wow.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the question was a pretty difficult one today, so I think you answered pretty well.
Difficult questions are the way to go.
Pat yourself on the back. Okay, so before we proceed to our episode proper, do remember to drop us a follow on Instagram at GameSenseFootball. And also, do feel free to drop us an email at gamesensefootball@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you. Right, Nas? We would love to hear from everyone.
Except the guy who said he saved the sharks.
Yeah. Or even if you're a cat, please do drop us an email.
Yes.
So, all right, let's get on with it. Okay, so if you haven't heard, following Mohamed Salah's goal and assist against Ipswich Town on Liverpool's opening day of the season, he has now 300 goal contributions. So that's both goals and assists in all competitions for Liverpool after just 350 games. That's insane.
Yeah, that's
insane.
Yeah, there are players who go through an entire career without 300.
Exactly. And for some of the other players that we are going to compare him to in this episode, their goal contributions their goals and assists, basically, in total, come nowhere near what Mohamed Salah has achieved. Yeah, so, and I think it is an especially big achievement considering that Liverpool have been playing at the highest level of competition, both in the Premier League and also in Europe in the Champions League. So, his achievements really have contributed in a big part to Liverpool's ascendancy, unfortunately for us. As one of the Premier League's, as one of the Premier League's top 2 or 3 clubs over the last 7 years or so during Klopp's reign. And I think, we having seen this, we decided to do this episode where we compare Mohamed Salah to some of those all-time greats in other clubs.
Yep.
At the end of this episode, we would be giving them some sort of a Game Sense football ranking. Right, Nas?
Yes. So yeah, we've selected a few. We can't compare Salah to every single favorite player In fact, the discussion about which players to select was quite drawn out and almost heated. There were a couple which we had to leave out just for in the interest of time.
Mm-hmm.
We'll try. I think the selection we have is quite fair. It covers players with similar positions. So other wingers or wide forwards, other goal scorers, other like transformative talismanic figureheads for various Premier League clubs.
Yes, yes. I think we are intentionally keeping it a little bit open-ended in terms of, you know, the criteria to make this list, because um, no two players are exactly alike. So I think we are just kind of going for players who have achieved big with their clubs, be it in terms of goals or in terms of their influence.
Yes.
So, okay, let's get the show on the road. First, we have Eric Cantona.
King Eric.
King Eric, yes. So I think Eric Cantona is probably the OG talisman, you know, from the Premier League era. He was there when the Premier League first began with Manchester United, and just before that with Leeds United.
Yep.
And I think it's safe to say that he was really the main catalyst that sparked United's ascendancy to dominate the Premier League in the 1990s and maybe a little bit more into the 2000s as well. Interestingly, when he joined Leeds, which, you know, are United's traditional rivals in England, he actually brought Leeds to their first title in 20 years.
Yes.
And then he went to United, and immediately he brought United their first title in 30 years. So make of that what you will.
Yeah. The transfer of Cantona to Leeds, in a way, or Cantona to United, sorry, in a way almost didn't happen because it was also tied to Leeds wanting to buy Dennis Irwin from United. Then Dennis Irwin got injured, so that didn't go through. But the Leeds chairman thought not to cancel the Cantona deal to United, and well, like you said, he propelled United to the title immediately, and he wasn't there for the entire period of like 28-year period of dominance, but he definitely lit the fire.
Apparently, Howard Wilkinson, the then manager of Leeds, didn't speak French, and he found it hard to integrate, you know, Cantona into his squad. I guess being a more old school type manager, Cantona, and being a bit more of a maverick, didn't really sit well with Wilkinson at that time. So, you know, surprisingly, they actually were willing to sell Cantona to United, you know, arch rivals and all. And we have to thank them for that, I guess.
Yeah. For our younger listeners, if you've never seen Eric Cantona play, I highly recommend looking for some sort of best of Eric Cantona sort of thing. He could score any kind of goal. Header, solo run, free kick, long shot, long lob, famously. He could also, you know, play a through ball, a long ball, could dribble. He wasn't very fast, but just he could do anything you wanted from as a forward. And he was one of the first, not the first, but definitely one of the first in the English top flight to play a sort of deep lying forward kind of role. Later on, you would see players like a Dennis Bergkamp, like a Zola, and there's a lot of them now. But a lot of defenses couldn't really handle it, and it really suited the United team at the time with a young Giggs and Beckham, you know, and like Kanchelskis and all before that. And his signing, his appearance, his arrival, in terms of what he brought to the pitch, in terms of his skill set, in terms of his persona, his gravitas, his determination and leadership as well, because he became captain, just drove United to that next level which they needed to get to win the league.
Yeah, I think one thing that needs to be said about Cantona is that if you look at his raw numbers for, you know, number of goal contributions, it's not fantastic.
Yes.
But he's the kind of player who elevates the rest of the team. Right, him being there, the confidence that he brings onto the pitch, the swagger.
Yes,
right. I mean,
swagger.
he's always playing with his collar up, his chest out. You know, it's very, very. It portrays a lot of confidence when he plays.
Yeah, I mean,
it's like,
look like the famous Nike ad, the good versus evil Nike ad, where, you know, the au revoir penalty.
the one from the penalty spot that he shoots through the devil's torso.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was one of the best ads, as a kid,
Yes. Yes.
watching football. Yeah, and I think, like I said, he's not really great in terms of goal numbers. If I'm not wrong, 64 goals, 51 assists in 143 games. Not
Something
bad,
like
but
something like
but
that. Yeah.
but not really what you would expect from a striker. Striker, like
Yes.
Nas, you said he was more of a support striker. He played
Mm.
a deep lying role. He really was a team player. He brought the team together, and that's something that cannot be understated enough. I think it's a bit more of an intangible influence that he brought to the
Yes.
team.
Yes. If you want to compare him to Salah, there are certain things where obviously Salah comes out on top. Raw numbers is not even a contest.
Yeah, exactly.
But there are some things I would argue Cantona did do better than Salah. You know, the leadership and all. Salah
Mm.
is captain for Egypt, but I don't think he has ever kept. I'm sure he has captain Liverpool, but he's not one of the Liverpool captains. If you know what I'm saying, right?
Yeah, it's not that sort of figurehead on the pitch.
Yeah, and I would also argue that while Salah has been transformative and essential and critical for Liverpool's success, Salah was already there and they didn't win the league until they bought Alisson and Van Dijk. And I would argue Van Dijk, in that regard, one or both of them were more transformative to push Liverpool to that next level.
I would agree. I would agree. I've always thought that Van Dijk was their final missing piece.
Mm,
I mean, they were bought at the same time, right? Van Dijk and Alisson. I mean,
yes.
Alisson arguably just as important, I think, because before that they never had very good luck with their goalkeepers.
Karius
Yeah.
and Mignolet, and also, if anything, Van Dijk changed the way they played, but Alisson improved that position tremendously.
Mm. Yes, that's right. So, like we said, Cantona's arrival, I think at that time, being a foreigner in the Premier League,
Mm.
that was not easy, I would think. Like at Leeds, they couldn't really communicate well with him. I think only one player spoke fluent French.
I wonder at what point Cantona learned, well, was able to speak fluent English, because obviously now he does a lot of media stuff in
Yep.
English, you know?
Look, he's a Frenchman, right?
Yes.
He probably could speak fluent English
I
upon
just didn't want
arrival.
to.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. Cantona had his discipline issues though, famously getting banned for kung fu kicking a fan. And that's something
Yeah.
Salah hasn't done for so far, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this Crystal Palace fan was like taunting him throughout the
Mm,
entire game. And like he just broke. I
yeah.
think
Snapped.
sometime after the match he was saying that, you just reach a point where you just feel like doing something.
Yes.
And he just did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So not the best advert for the game or for self restraint, but he got banned. What was it? 9 months,
9
and
months, yeah.
he came back and immediately scored on his game on his
A
return.
penalty, right? On
Yeah.
his return.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of which, if
Hmm.
I'm not wrong, Cantona, I think, has never missed a penalty for United, or maybe only one,
Has he not?
something like
Wow.
that, some insane record. But the strange thing is that Salah has actually a very poor penalty record.
What's that?
Remember, when we were doing the quiz, Salah was the only one last season to miss two.
Ah, yes.
Since joining Liverpool in 2017-18, Salah has failed to convert more Premier League penalties than any other player. So he's already missed six.
Wow.
And in Liverpool's history, only Gerrard and Owen have missed more
Owen missed 7 penalties for Liverpool.
in the Premier League.
He was there for like what, 2 years? 1 year?
No,
2 years?
longer than that, longer than that. But yeah, Salah has missed at least six. This stat is actually a few months old. But I think
Wow.
it's still relevant. Still accurate. Sorry. Straight. It's quite strange. Like Leo Messi also has a weirdly poor penalty record. Obviously, still more than half. But so Salah has missed 6 out of 29. That's almost
Oh,
no. That's more than 20%.
yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and if you look at XG, a penalty is 0.8, which means Salah on penalties is in a way worse than average,
Oh, wow.
because if he's missed more than 20% on a 0.8 goal.
Yeah, I mean, imagine his goal contribution record would be so much better with all those penalties as well.
Yeah, definitely.
That's interesting. Interesting. But you know something about Salah is when he first joined Liverpool,
Mm,
he was not very clinical. I remember.
mm. Yeah.
Suddenly just clicked.
He was a known quantity already when he was at Roma and Fiorentina before that, even at Chelsea
Mm-hmm.
before that, because Chelsea bought him from Basel, right? And he was always, like you said, this fast, twisty winger who could get into the box but didn't have the end product. And then suddenly at Liverpool, it all clicked.
Maybe it's the coaching.
Maybe Klopp at the time. The
Yeah.
maybe it's Anfield. There was a stat also that Salah in his first 128 league games at Anfield, Liverpool Stadium, had 128 goals, goal contributions,
Huh?
93 goals, 35 assists. Technically, by the 128th game, he had actually played 129 because he played once for Chelsea at Anfield.
He only had one oh, is it at
Yeah,
Anfield?
at
Yes.
Anfield.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Got it. Speaking about Cantona and his penalty taking as well on his return, do you think Cantona has a bigger influence on the team than Salah? I would say yes. I
I
mean,
think
of course,
yes.
you can, understand that we are United fans as well, and Cantona is the reason why I actually support United.
Mm,
Make of that what you will. I do think that Cantona has had a pretty much transformative influence on the United team. Like I said earlier, when he arrived, he brought United the first title in 30 years.
mm,
And after that, just kept winning, right?
mm.
In terms of raw numbers, no chance, for Cantona to win that, obviously. But in terms of influence, in like I said, elevating the whole team to play better, I think that's something that Salah is probably not so known for.
I agree, though I would pick up on one thing you said about the raw numbers. If you look at raw numbers, Cantona has more Premier League titles than Salah.
Enough said.
But yeah, no, jokes aside, while Salah has been bloody amazing, annoyingly so, he scored goals at a rate almost nobody has matched. I feel that in terms of what Cantona brought to the team, like you said, there's a lot of intangible that Salah doesn't.
Mm-hmm.
That's not to say it's hard to say whether which is more important. But what I would argue is that it's easier to find a goal scorer than it is to find somebody with the X factor that lifts the entire team. I'm not saying it's easy to find a goal scorer who can score 30 goals from the wing like Salah has done, but there are players who do that. Whereas the kind of impact, the off the pitch emotional, psychological impact that Cantona brought to the very young United squad, which
Mm-hmm.
was like rippled and reverberated through 2 decades of silverware. That's
Yep.
generational at best,
Yeah, I agree. The influence that Cantona had over the success that United actually went through,
Yeah.
that cannot be emphasized enough. On to our next guy. You mentioned about goal scoring, matching up to Salah. Very few people can do that. One person who could do that would be our next guy, Thierry Henry.
Thierry Henry.
Thierry Henry, another Frenchman.
Yes.
I think based on the fact, as an individual player in terms of his numbers, he's up there with both Cantona and Salah. 2 FA Cups, 2 Premier League titles, I think, and as well as being part of the Invincibles team in,
Mm.
I think, 2004, was it?
I think so.
Yeah, and he started as a winger, interestingly,
Mm.
Thierry Henry. Was converted to a striker by none other than Arsene Wenger in Arsenal.
Mm.
And after that, he just couldn't stop scoring. He was
Yeah.
an okay winger, right? Before that,
Yeah.
he wasn't fantastic. He was at Juventus before Arsenal.
Yes.
Didn't really light it up at all.
Mm.
Yeah, and interestingly, I actually read that, and I didn't know this before, but I read recently that he was actually Monaco's youngest senior first team player before Mbappe overtook him.
He was in the team with him and David Trezeguet were the attackers in that Monaco team.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I remember him being in Monaco because of Football Manager.
Yes. But
Yes.
when I played that was FM or CM, whatever
Or
it was.
Championship. I think it was still
I
Championship
think it was
Manager.
CM. Yeah.
It was the late 90s,
I
late
never
90s.
bought Henry. I always bought Trezeguet.
So one thing about Henry I remember was he was actually always featured at the top of the whole like transfer market as one of the more expensive players
Mm.
when he was in Monaco, and he was a left winger.
Yeah.
I bought him a few times. It kind of sucked, to be honest. That was my early impression of him.
Mm.
But after that, went to Arsenal, and really the rest is history, right?
Y-
So one thing about Henry,
Mm.
he actually got top scorer, I think, 4 times in the Premier League.
Mm.
So that's more than Salah. Salah has been top scorer 3 times.
Yes, yes.
Yes. And I think once he was even a European Golden Shoe winner, Henry.
Mm.
It's all about goals, right? And he was so elegant the way he played. I remember watching him. He
Yeah.
looked like, yeah, he made everything look effortless, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Running with the ball,
Yeah. Running,
language
shooting,
style.
passing. But he was also he was fast, he was strong, skillful, he could play a pass, score again almost any kind of goal, free kick, long shot, a volley, a header, solo goal. That goal where the solo goal against Liverpool, where he glides past Jamie Carragher near the end, is so good. Then there's
Yep.
the really annoying flick and lob against United, like over Bartes, and so many
Yeah.
others. Like a lot of long curling shots. He scored a back heel once also, I think, from a corner. He was one of the first high profile, like wide forwards. He was definitely a striker at Arsenal, but the way he played was he would drift wide and attack the channel. And it was one of the first times you would see that from a player of his sort of skill set and ability. It had been tried before, but not to great success. But he was one of the first ones to do it. And nowadays, you see almost every team has a wide forward like that, or a wide forward that tries to do that.
Yeah, probably, his background as a winger
Yes.
probably helped with that position, that sort of positioning that he had. I don't think during his time there were a lot of wingers who were converted to being the main scorers in the team.
Mm,
So, he kind of really set the standard for that sort of player.
yeah. Whatever Salah is now, you could argue, Arsenal fans would argue, it's down to Thierry Henry blazing the trail.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. In fact, he blazed the trail so much that he was actually voted Arsenal's greatest ever player
Yeah.
by some Arsenal.com poll
Mm.
in I think 2008, 2008.
Earlier, you said that Henry was sort of a blend of Salah and Cantona, and I think that's a good description in the sense of he had the swagger and like, the personality.
It's this French confidence.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And the personality and the confidence and the almost the arrogance, right? Which bled into the other players in his team. And Salah,
Yeah,
and not saying Salah isn't arrogant, not saying that Salah doesn't have a swagger, but you just don't get the same sort of energy from him, the way he influences the rest of the team.
I
But
think the charisma is
yeah,
different, right?
charisma. Yeah, charisma. That's the word. But Henry also scored a shit ton of goals.
Yeah.
Earlier, I mentioned Salah scored 128 goals at Anfield. Henry has got 151 at Highbury, Arsenal's old stadium, which is tied for joint most with Rooney at Old Trafford.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. So
Rooney's got that many.
Rooney and Henry, 151 home goals. Giggs, 134. Aguero, 134. Frank Lampard, 131. Salah, 128. Obviously, Salah is probably going to overtake Lampard this season. Probably be maybe third by the end of this season.
Where's Alan Shearer in all of this?
Alan Shearer is not that high because he obviously played for Blackburn and Newcastle. So
Ah,
goals were
that's
split.
that's why he couldn't score so many home goals in one
Yeah.
single stadium.
Yeah.
I see, I see.
So Henry and Salah, very similar players. Wide attackers. Henry still more central in the sense of his positioning as Salah, who is 100% a winger who scores goals.
Yes.
I think most neutrals would pick Henry over Salah.
I am a neutral.
Mm.
I would pick Henry over Salah.
Okay.
Yes. I think Henry also did a little bit more to kind of carry his team. He had a very good supporting cast, but he's that kind of influential figure who would drag his team,
Mm.
along when they're not playing so well. And like we said, in terms of the charisma, the swagger, the arrogance even, right? And not arrogance in a bad way, arrogance in a way that helps galvanize the team, right? To perform better. I think that's something that Henry possesses a little bit more than Salah. And the thing is, it's a little bit like Cantona, right? Being on the pitch, Henry actually elevates the team to a much higher level. I do feel. Although, when we talk about influence, I think Cantona would take the cake over Henry, in the sense that when Henry arrived at Arsenal, the team was pretty much intact already.
Yes.
The
It
good
was
the good players we remember, like
already a very,
Ljungberg
very
was
good team.
already
Yeah.
there, Bergkamp was already there,
Vieira.
Vieira,
Yeah.
Petit, who else? I can't think of that.
The defense.
Kanu, I guess. Yeah, their defense, yes. The whole Martin Keown, Lee Dixon, who else? Nigel Winterburn, yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
all the famous big names,
Yeah. And then Henry's presence would also mean that the players coming in, like an Edu, like a Gilberto, like a Lauren, Ashley Cole,
Pires, yeah.
Sylvan Wiltor, Pires, and all, he helped to make sure that standard was maintained. Like Henry was in a way one of the linchpins from one great Arsenal team to another, right?
That's
Whereas
right.
Salah was part of the amazing the team, the front three with Robertson and Trent on the wing, Alisson behind, Van Dijk in the middle, Fabinho, Henderson, and all in midfield. But Salah hasn't pulled together another great team. It's not his fault, but that's just the truth of it, right?
One interesting thing about Salah and one of his Golden Boot wins,
Yep.
he actually was joint winner with Sadio Mane. Imagine
Yes.
that.
Yes.
Two players from the same team
Mm.
winning the Golden Boot together.
That's if you see that happening in a video game, you would think it's unrealistic. But it goes
Exactly.
to show how good the Liverpool team, or at least the front three, were. And
Yep.
again, that's not to take anything away from Salah, but it's how it's sort of the argument I have against Raheem Sterling, where Sterling looked amazing when he emerged at Liverpool, but I
Mm.
have always argued that it was because teams were terrified of Luis Suarez and Daniel Sturridge and left Sterling free. So again, I'm not saying people are leaving Salah free because he's bloody amazing, but if your team has many amazing attacking talents, and if you can have two players win the Golden Boot, your opponents cannot then really stop you.
Yes, and I would say, Salah's attacking partners, both Mane, who won the Golden Boot,
Mm.
and Firmino, they are very unselfish players.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep. So
Yeah. In fact,
that
there
will
were
help.
a few instances where the Liverpool players, especially Mane, would complain that Salah was too selfish.
Yeah, I've seen that. I've seen that happen.
Yeah, but it has definitely happened. So again, if you score that many goals, you kind of earn the right to be a bit selfish, but it helped Salah that his teammates were unselfish.
And it really actually highlights how unselfish Firmino was.
Yes. Yes.
The fact that both his strike partners were Golden Boot winners. So anyway, Thierry Henry, I think as an individual player, technical ability, goal scoring ability, he's up there, man. Better than Salah. I would say potentially better than Cantona as well. But Cantona had, like you said, the X factor, the intangible.
Mm.
I know it sounds a bit fluffy when we say it like that, but it's true.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And what's also interesting though is Salah took 247 games to reach
Mhm.
150 Premier League goals. Henry took
Mm.
220. So Henry
Ah.
got to that milestone first.
Mm.
And minutes per goals and assists, Henry is also ahead of Salah. So I would have to give it to Henry.
Yeah, Henry.
Yeah.
Well, that's actually quite sick. Like he has actually stats that make him even more sick than Salah.
If we are saying that on the intangible level, Henry edges it, or maybe not even is better than Salah in that regard, but the stats also, some of the stats at least, back up how Henry is ahead of Salah.
Agreed. Agreed. Okay, so the next player we would like to talk about is Gareth Bale.
Gareth Bale, another winger sort of player that originally was in a different position.
Yes, yes. Actually, in fact, Gareth Bale has played in a variety of positions, right?
Mm,
When he first came onto the scene, he was a left back.
yes.
Super weird when you talk about it now. And then he was moved to the left wing.
Mm-hmm.
He's moved across the attack line from left to right. Started out at left back, most interestingly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so Gareth Bale. I think we wanted to talk about Bale because he had a really banger of a final season or 2 seasons, in fact, with Spurs during the
Mm,
first time that he was there.
mm,
But it didn't start out so well, right? When
yes.
I think he is famous for having played 24 times for Spurs at the start of his career there
Mm-hmm.
and not being on a single winning side.
Yes. It's
So
a stat which has followed him around forever, and I guess will
yes,
always follow him
it
around.
will.
Yeah.
It will
Es-
follow him around forever.
Especially when we keep bringing it up. But yeah.
Yeah,
And then he suddenly exploded.
correct. So basically, Spurs did not win a single time in Gareth Bale's first 24 appearances for them. That's nuts.
Yeah.
I think things started to change for him, especially when he was moved to the wing, right?
Mm.
I don't think I remember a single game of Gareth Bale being at left back and kind of, standing out to me.
I don't remember him playing at left back. I remember watching Spurs with him at left back, but I had no impression, mainly because I was curious to see, because again, through FM, you knew that this fella was a wonder kid, right? But even in FM, he was a left wing back, not a left winger. You'll always buy him and play him at left back, come up
Yep.
with a tactic that allowed him to attack from left back.
Yes, yes, that's right. That's right. So move to the left wing,
Mm.
and in the match in the Champions League in 2010 against Inter, that's when he really
Uh,
announced himself to the world.
that was like when he destroys, is it Maicon, the right back?
Mycon. But
Yeah.
so in the group games, right? In the
Mm.
first game, he's got a hat trick, but Spurs lost.
Yes.
Spurs were down 4-0.
Yeah.
Then Bale comes, scores a hat trick to win. I mean to lose 4-3. But I mean he came up like with a lot of credit for that, you know.
Mm.
And I think in the opposite fixture, he destroyed Mycon. That
Again.
was like, yeah, a victory for Spurs, if I'm not wrong, 3-1 or something like that.
Yeah.
But basically Mycon at that time was still kind of, he had a reputation of being one of the better right backs in the world. One of
Mm.
the best, in fact, in
Mm.
the world.
Mm.
And there he was being destroyed by Gareth Bale, the
Yes.
guy who didn't win in his first 24 appearances for Spurs.
Yeah. So by this time, Bale was already playing left wing, but it was these two games which sort of propelled him into superstardom suddenly.
Yep.
It was like he was playing against a kid. Just how fast and how strong Bale was. And he carried this form back to the Premier League. And just for like 18 months or something, he would just destroy anybody he came up against, just with pure speed and power and finishing.
Yeah, I mean, he had a pretty good left foot, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think the 2012-2013 season was when he really peaked at Spurs, but it was also the last season that he played there because after that kind of led to his
So, yeah.
80 plus million pound move to Real Madrid. In fact, that last year that he was there, he won the Premier League Player of the Season, Players Player of the Year, Young Player of the
Yes.
Year, Welsh Footballer of the Year, Spurs Player of the Year, of course.
Yeah.
Basically,
But
it was like the year of Gareth Bale.
yeah, but even though he had this landmark destroy everybody season, still not good enough to get Spurs to any silverware.
Yeah. uh, in fact, he was actually part of the Spurs team that won their last silverware, and that was like something like, I think, League Cup in
Yeah,
2008.
the League Cup, yeah.
And the thing is that he wasn't even playing,
Yes.
so he didn't get a medal,
Mm.
which is kind of funny actually.
Peak Gareth Bale, even though he would beat everybody, could not get his team to win anything.
He's just not the kind of guy who would influence others, like what we say about
Was
Cantona and
yeah,
and Henry and even
yeah,
Salah, right?
yes.
He doesn't really elevate the performances of his team based on his own performance.
So in a way, I guess Bale is very like Salah, goal scoring winger that amazing numbers, even though Bale only did it for a shorter period of time. Different kind of players in the way they scored their goals, but neither of them have had that ability, the influence to enhance the people around them.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's quite clear that how good he was just wasn't enough
Yes.
to help Spurs to actually achieve anything.
Yeah. Even
Yep.
even though against Spurs didn't have the best squad in the league for sure, but when they had the best player in the league, you would have thought they would have done better.
Yep, very true. Of course, you mentioned earlier that Bale didn't really score as much over the period of time as Salah, right? Salah's doing it for more years. But to his credit, to Bale's credit, I mean at Real Madrid he did quite well
Yes.
in the first half of his time over there.
Yes. That first Champions League final, him and Di Maria won it for them.
Yep.
The pictures are Ronaldo, but it's Angel Di Maria and Gareth Bale that dragged them over the line against Atletico.
Yep. That's the one with the extra time, right?
Yes. And Bale also later on near the end scores the bicycle kick against Liverpool in the final.
Against Liverpool.
That's the game Salah gets taken out by Sergio Ramos.
Yep, correct. Not to say that Bale wasn't great, but he's just not the kind of guy to pull your team out from the depths and get it, get them across the line.
Yes. So compared to Salah, I would say very, very similar, but there are things Bale can do that Salah can't, that almost anybody can. Like the goal that Bale scores, his performances against Inter, the goal for Real against Barca in the Spanish Super Cup, where he goes
The one that
around the
he
defender
burst
from
past Marc Bartra, right?
Marc Bartra. He runs past Marc Bartra, who is sprinting straight, and Bale goes on a big curve
Yeah,
around him just to get around
yeah.
him. And
Bale
Bartra
had to
cannot catch him.
run outside. He had to run
Yeah.
outside the pitch to go run one round around Marc Bartra, and he still
Like
beat him.
a few months later, he would do the exact same thing in a friendly or European qualifier or something. Wales against Finland or Iceland, and he does the exact same thing. But looking at this, because we're looking at Premier League, primarily at least, or
Yes.
at least the players' influence on his Premier League side.
Yep.
Bale, amazing for Spurs, but didn't get them to win anything, and also only for maybe about 2 years. Salah has done it over a much longer time.
Yep.
And has won stuff for Liverpool.
Premier League, Champions League,
Yeah.
FA Cup, League Cup, something like that. But and much more consistent, right? Over, he's been delivering every year.
Mo Salah is the first player in Premier League history to score 10 plus goals and 10 plus assists in 3 consecutive seasons. That's already longer than Bale's entire influence at Spurs, I would say.
Yeah. Yes. So yeah, Gareth Bale, not overly influential, but incredible individual player. I mean, individual achievements wise. Yeah.
Yes. Hi everyone. Now, you might be thinking, hey, we don't have that much time left in this episode, so where's all the chat and discussion about the other EPL legends and how they compare to Mo Salah? I want to hear about Victor Moses and Nicola Pepe and Jadon Sancho. Well, we've decided to split this into 2 parts, okay? So in our next episode, which will be out soonly, we will see how Mo Salah compares to a famous son-in-law, a player with quite possibly the coolest name ever, and the man who can't stop scoring but can't start winning. Remember, as usual, send in your feedback, your requests, your thoughts, your comments, your suggestions to our email at gamesensefootball@gmail.com, and also follow us on Instagram at gamesensefootball. We always love to hear from you. So until next time, which will be very soon, thanks for listening and stay tuned for part 2.